our history. Buildings and people and memories and dreams. Who better to tell us than those who were there? There's so much to learn from the stories they'll share. Living history. Living history.
Hello, this is Living History with Ted Goldsborough, and today we're honored to have with us Nolan Atkinson, who grew up in Bryn Mawr and went through the Lower Merion School District and became a Lower Merion Commissioner back in the 1970s and 80s, and is an attorney in Philadelphia. We're going to go chronologically, talking about Bryn Mawr in the beginning, where Nolan and his family lived. Welcome, Mr. Atkinson. Thanks for being with us today.
I'm happy to be here. Delighted to talk about my early life, which seems a long time ago, but I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. I thought we could start with a map, an atlas map, and here's Lancaster Avenue, but give me some bearings here.
Sure. I was raised on Warner Avenue. Lancaster Avenue, of course, runs east to west. Warner Avenue, at that time when I was a kid, was a two-way street. It's now a one-way street. And I lived at 20 South Warner Avenue, which was a property that was constructed by my father in the 1939-1940 time period.
Mr. Atkinson fortunately brought in the indenture of, what's this document?
This is an indenture between Trinity Building and Loan Association and my father and mother, who were purchasing the lot, something which I've only seen recently as I've gone through some old papers that my parents had in their possession. But it was a very nice home. In some ways, I always consider 20 South Warner Avenue my home.
Okay. So let's come in from Lancaster Avenue. What would we have seen first coming into Warner?
Well, if you came into Warner, there was on the western side, there was a corner building, a brown building, which was a bar when I was a kid. And then as you walked up the street southerly, there were four row homes, 12, 14, 16, and 18, I believe. And those are the row homes which are depicted in this photograph. Then there was, still going south, there was an alleyway, and there was a brick wall which divided the alleyway, which was done by a stonemason. That was a retaining wall which my father built, and then the driveway into his property along with his office and home.
Well, oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
And this is a more modern...
This is much more modern, and in an era when I no longer live there. My parents no longer live there. This is certainly post-1984.
Okay.
Because they sold the property in 1984.
Did they go to Cathedral Village then?
No, they went to property which was on East Lancaster Avenue in Wynwood, an apartment house right across the street from what used to be Raymond P. Scott.
Yes, a high-rise.
High-rise,
right. And
they lived there for between 84 and 92. My father always wanted to go someplace. His one requirement when he had to leave Warner Avenue Of course, when he had to leave Warner Avenue, he had to give up his medical practice because his practice was associated with the house. So it was really a sort of a full retirement. You can't go back. And he told my mother, I want a sidewalk that I can walk up and down the street. I don't want to have to get in the car every time I want to go to get the newspaper. So that was how they picked the apartment house on Lancaster Avenue.
Right.
Then they went to Cathedral Village in '92.
Okay. This, I presume, is the house you're...
Yeah, this is sort of sad to look at because the property never looked as it does here when my parents lived here. It was kept in first-class condition at all times and was well maintained. And these pictures here, today's pictures are a little bit more demoralizing and a little bit more depressing. As a matter of fact, I don't even drive down Warner Avenue any longer because I don't like to see the way it looks.
Now, was your father's medical office, where was it? I presume on this side.
Yes, on this side, patients would walk up a sidewalk. He'd walk up those steps. There was the waiting room. Would go in there. Patients would then sit in the waiting room. This window, I imagine, was where there was a lavatory. Then there was this consultation room. After the patients had seen him in a medical capacity, they then would walk out of the second door, and all the way in the back was the examination room.
Okay. I tried to take...
Yeah. So this picture shows it much more clearly. That waiting room, lavatory, consultation room, and examination room.
Was there anybody there to assist, like an aide or a secretary? Or?
No, one of the, he practiced for 50 years, from 34, not all at Warner Avenue, because he, 6 years before that, he also practiced on Warner Avenue, first in a property owned by a resident, a Mr. Drakeford, further up the street, and then he moved to 19 Warner Avenue and lived there for about the 3 years before he brought the empty lot across the street.
So 19 would be across the street?
Across the street.
Up a little rise?
Up the steps, yes.
Yeah.
One of the limitations of this property was that there was no... you couldn't build out further, and you couldn't rent more, so that he was pretty much limited and never did have any assistant who was able to practice with him. And so he was pretty much a one-man operation for the whole 50 years.
Did he keep medical records on the patients?
He did. Yeah, he absolutely did. When he retired, those patients, because there was a physician who purchased the property when he retired, those patients who wished to continue, their records were transferred, and ultimately the records of those who went elsewhere were either transferred to the appropriate physician or destroyed.
Okay. I forget how much the drop-off is down there. Would it be possible the car could slip and go down over that hill?
No, because the wall was built up, and as a kid I used to play baseball, throw a baseball back and forth. Rarely would the ball go over the wall. Occasionally when it did, and that was, when I got my first chance to climb or chin myself up on the wall when it went down in what we used to call down in the alley. But
it wasn't dangerous.
It was no danger. It was they always had 2 cars, and they would keep 1 car in the garage and 1 that was just parked in front of the garage.
Was there a garage back here? Or is there a garage?
I'm not sure what this is.
Okay, an extension on the back there.
It looks like an extension from what used to be his examination room. Where you see that gutter is where the garage was.
Okay, okay. Now, when you were a kid, do you remember an Acme Market being?
I do.
Okay.
I
so
do.
That was real handy.
That was real handy, and probably some of my first independent trips to pick up a loaf of bread or something else. I recall very clearly there was an Acme Market, and then walking east there was Jake's Hardware, where I sort of fell in love with the smell of the wood floor. Because, it was an old style hardware store, and then there was I don't remember what was in between, but there was something called Miller's Drugstore. And that's where you could get ice cream cone for 5 cents, a double-decker for a dime.
Wow.
So, yes, I knew that block very well.
And it was just around the corner from
Just
where
around
you
the
lived.
corner.
Oh,
Yes.
that was heaven.
Yes.
Now, pretty soon we're going to have to take a break, but we
Okay.
have
All
a
right.
minute,
That's
so we're
right.
doing okay. What schools did you attend?
I went to Bryn Mawr Elementary School. This looks like a little before my time, based upon the picture. But Bryn Mawr Elementary, right through kindergarten through 6th grade.
Okay. Now could you walk down there?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
I'm sure I would have walked with, like, my older sister or with someone else. My general recollection is my mother would drive us in the morning and that we would walk home in the afternoon. That's my recollection.
Time to take a little break here.
All right.
And we'll be back.
Okay.